Boy, it looked good too, didn't it, Corey?
Yep, looked good right up until it just ticked the net. That went wow, swatted away. Wages get up there just before it got to...
Well, we're into the month of February here in high school basketball on ISPN.TV and CET Sports. Along with Marty Cesario, Brian Roth with you. We're going to unveil our 5A top 10s of both the boys and the girls here in just a moment. But looking back to last week, boy, we have a great rivalry that we have done now for 3 years in a row. It's Golden and D'Evelyn 4A Jeffco League. I don't know if a lot of people know a ton about that rivalry, but it is a big-time rivalry with some of the best atmospheres we see each and every year.
Yeah, we're learning a lot about it. And matter of fact, I just sent an email to the AD and the athletic secretary and Coach Packner that, you know, hey, look, thank you for letting us be a part of that relationship, in quotes. It's just amazing, whether it's at D'Evelyn High or Golden, which it was just this past week on Friday. It's just amazing. But both sides show up. You got the SWAT team all decked out in yellow for the Golden squad. D'Evelyn's on the other side, exercise the demons in their printed T-shirts. Every parent shows up. Brothers, sisters, you know, 3 generations of kids all showing up for this particular matchup. In the Jeffco 4A level, this is just an amazing matchup, and certainly the atmosphere is well worth participating in and definitely experiencing.
Now you see some of the highlights there, but if you want to catch those 2 games, they come up a little bit later on the week here on CET Sports. All right, here's the top 10 in Class 5A. Boys, will get you. There is some changes at the top, not at the very top, of course, because Ken Shaw and the Regis Raiders, they continue to roll. They're off to that 16-1 start, but Rampart drops a spot. They got beat by 24 against the Palmer Terrors. What in the world happened at John St. Clair's team?
Well, I think they got a little bit tired, a little bit of fatigue. Certainly they had a target on their back because, you know, they were unbeaten for so long, but then they played 4 games in 8 days, and they did a good job. They beat Palmer 5 days earlier before that loss. They also beat number 5 Fountain Fort Carson, took care of Doherty, but, you know, that loss to Palmer by 24 points revealed a few things, showed a few weaknesses. Maybe might have some issues with, you know, smaller guards, you know, like Riggs Russell against some bigger boys, which Palmer had. So, you know, that's why they dropped just 1 notch. They're still very strong. St. Clair's got a great squad.
We'll talk about Palmer in just a second, but Fort Collins, we decided to move them up to number 2. They're 16-1, as is Rampart, and we mentioned Regis is also 16-1. The only loss on the season for Fort Collins was to Regis. It was a closer game than the final 20-point margin of deficit indicated, but we're going to get a better idea about Fort Collins coming up this week. They're going to get Fairview, led by Dara O'Neill, and then a Mountain Range team that we saw in CET a couple weeks ago. They're sitting at 14-3.
Yeah, both those squads you just mentioned, Fairview, Mountain Range, undefeated in league play. So we're about to find out about the Lambkins.
All right, 6 through 10 in Class 5A boys. And Arapahoe stays in there, as does Lincoln. By the way, Lincoln has George and Thomas Jefferson coming up. There's Palmer, Chatfield, and then Chaparral. They lose a couple of games, including a loss to Regis here this past week. And Marty, Chaparral, boy, biggest game of the year. They're taking on Regis, defending state champs, #1 ranked team of the state, and they go down 17-2 after the first quarter.
30-9 at halftime. I mean, basically for the Wolverines, got to watch out and see if their bubble got burst. You know, they had their 14-game win streak snapped in 2 different places. You know, you mentioned the loss to #1 Regis, also lost earlier in the week to Highlands Ranch. So, you know, things are kind of iffy for Jordan Adams, Dalton Patton, Coach Johnson. We'll have to see how the Wolverines, fortunately for them, schedule gets a little lighter this week.
Yeah. Talking about Palmer, they have vaulted back into our top 10. Terrell Brown leads them. And Jimmy Grant has a pretty good basketball team. We liked them last year a lot. You look at their losses, twice to Doherty, once to Fountain Fort Carson, and once to Rampart. Of course, they got a little vengeance against Rampart. They avenged that earlier loss with the 24-point victory. Top 4 teams in that Colorado Springs Metro League are so very, very tough. We had to drop Dakota Ridge, and all they did is win 2 games this week, but we feel Palmer's probably a little better than Dakota Ridge. Dakota Ridge right on the outside looking in. And, hey, we got to look at Chatfield for the first time here this year on CET Sports. They just destroyed Ralston Valley. Chatfield's a team. I know they've kind of slipped a little bit. They're down at number 9 in our latest poll at 13-4, but it's a very, very good Chatfield team. They're going to factor into the mix as the year goes along. On to Class 5A girls, and here's a look at the top 10. We'll focus on 1 through 5. And Highlands Ranch stays at the top, and in fact, the first 5 remain the same. They're Marty Legacy. They won 3 straight after the loss to Monarch, and Thunder Ridge and Denver East still right up there.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the Continental. Got to do so. Highlands Ranch certainly pasting people all week long. You know, you got to pay attention to what they're doing. Watch out for the number 5 spot there. Denver East Angels, Samantha Sanders, Shay Kelly, D1 player, and then Deidre Smith, since her transfer to Overland. Remember, she's only played like 6-7 games right now, averaging 17 a game now that she's been, you know, installed into the Angels team.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, listen, Montbello might challenge the Angels coming up in a game that we'll have on CET here in a week and a half, but the Angels very well could go into the postseason with just the 5 losses that most of those 5 they suffered early in the season. Meanwhile, how about Highlands Ranch? They hammered Chaparral earlier this week as we continue to take a look at the top 10. And those Chaparral, we're going to keep them right there at number 6. And how about going through the gauntlet? Chaparral in consecutive games got Thunder Ridge, Highlands Ranch, and Regis. They went 2-1. That's not bad.
Not bad at all, and Chaparral deserves to stay where they are. They do have the gauntlet coming up, a little bit more of it. It extends Ponderosa today, Monday, and also Heritage on Tuesday. I know the Eagles are going to drop out, but still certainly they're a great Continental League team. So Courtney Gallo, Melissa Ray, Laboda, I mean, you know what? you got to put out more, seriously.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened to Heritage in that contest against Highlands Ranch, but they get beat by 44 points. And is it a matter of Highlands Ranch being that good? Is it a matter of Heritage struggling that much? I think obviously it's in between those two things, but that's a score that sends shockwaves around 5A basketball. So there you see the top 10, and we have 4 out of the Continental League, 3 out of that Front Range League. We put Fairview in there. Nobody from Jeffco, nobody from the Centennial League. With Cherry Creek right on the cusp there, but I didn't think Missy Steck's team quite yet is deserving of a top 10 ranking. Than Arvada West, they've played really well at the Jeffco, but just on the outside looking in. Great game coming up this week in girls basketball in that Continental League, as we will have Thunder Ridge and Heritage. We'll get a better idea of where Heritage is after that loss last week to the Highlands Ranch Falcons. All right, Marty, should be fun wrestling this week as well. I know we're going to be out and about. So for Marty Cesario, I'm Brian Roth. Thanks for joining us. As always, we come to you on Mondays here at ISPN.TV.